Welcome to Understood.org, a free online resource for parents of kids with learning and attention issues, with personalized recommendations, tools, and expert advice.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service, and with me today I have Mr. Matthew Metschke.
Hi there, sir.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Can I call you Matt?
You can call me Matt.
Okay. Matt is the director for the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery in Rittman, Ohio, and in Medina County. I always like to point that out. And better yet, he is an Army veteran. So glad to have you on the show today.
Thank you.
And I know you're not a Medina native. You moved here because of your job and stuff, but where are you from?
I'm from Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay. It's almost like Medina.
It's almost, yeah. You kind of have the rural, and then the city kind of encapsulates the the outer lying parts, and yet you can get away and be in a quiet, so to speak, neighborhood in one moment. But I was originally in Virginia prior to coming here, so I spent, I guess you could say, I transplanted, and Virginia became our home.
So you married, couple kids?
Married, I've got 5 children.
5 children?
On marriage too, and we have a son between us, and then I have my 5 children. I call them, all mine anyway, but they're stepchildren, blended family. So we don't want to leave anybody out. So
you joined the Army from Omaha?
From Omaha, absolutely.
How old were you?
I was 22, 23.
Okay.
So I was considered kind of an old man going in at that time, and went in January.
What year?
Of 2001.
Okay.
And so actually I was delayed entry for a little bit, finishing some college classes and things like that, and decided I was running out of money, and my goal was to become a funeral director, and I thought, well, why not, let's give this a try. I didn't want to put it on my parents, so it was a good opportunity to raise it for myself.
So I know when you were in the military, you said you were mortuary affairs.
Absolutely.
Did you know going in you were going to do that?
Absolutely. When I was at a career fair, actually, is when I realized to think about going back into the service as an option and getting school paid for. They actually had a card listed of a bunch of different jobs, and I saw mortuary affairs. I'm like, wow, that's in line with what I want to do. However, my dad's still upset because he's a former staff sergeant. He says, I'd love to find your recruiter, because he sure lied, because there's no funeral home at Arlington Cemetery. We're still trying to find that cemetery, or the funeral home. And basically, it was more or less that, it was a MOS that not many people knew about. So my dad always looked at it, it's like recruiters should always know a little bit about what they're
you had a little background from college?
Because
I was going to say, there can't be a whole lot of guys and gals doing mortuary affairs, and sometimes it's hard to get into those positions.
Well, it's family run, so a lot of it these days, it's not many people that are beating the doors down to become a funeral director. It's usually starts with a family or starts with an interest, and so lo and behold, I was glad I could find something to kind of stay in line with my goals and everything like that. And I figured, at least the Army, in Stripes, they do have a good diet and training program for things. So at least best thing I could get is some exercise. But it was a good experience.
So you went to Fort Jackson for basic training?
Absolutely.
That was basic.
Basic was good, actually. It wasn't the stories that people say, that people come running at you off the bus and clothes go flying, which people have seen, in different documentaries of basic training. And it was pretty easy going in January. There wasn't many young kids, so there was a lot more of a mature sense. So I was with a lot of people that were going into non-combat MOS or jobs, so people that were going to be using their skills and their brains, so they didn't really hit you hard on the mental breakdown. So my experience was far different than probably many have.
So after Jackson, you went off, where's Mortuary Affairs AIT?
Mortuary Affairs AIT is, it used to be 57 Fox, or Foxtrot was the designator. It became 92 Mike, and they renamed it Mortuary Affairs. Well, the 92 series, a lot of that falls underneath supply, logistics, a lot of the cooking MOSs. So that all got moved to Fort Lee, Virginia. So that's That's always been a point within mortuary affairs is do we put them with the medical people in Texas? So that's where they found the home, and that's where I did
It's
my
a little better than
training.
Texas, though, because that's right outside Virginia
Exactly.
Beach. Isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not in the greatest, still not in the greatest location. You know, I think every Army base has got one no man's land you don't go to.
The Navy's got the good real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how long was Mortuary Affairs AIT? I mean, how long were you there?
It's one of the shortest MOSs. I was only there 6 weeks.
Really?
Yeah, it
So
was very quick.
I know nothing about mortuary
Sure.
affairs other than, obviously what the name is and what you guys kind of do. But so what do you learn in AIT for mortuary affairs?
In 6 weeks, we learned everything that needs to be done as far as a search and recovery of our fallen men and women that serve and get into a combat situation. It can even be used as far as our job for natural disasters.
Okay.
So if you in the event there are casualties, we know how to go in and identify what human remains look like, how to assist pathologists, and how to assist forensic odontologists with teeth, and do dental charting, and a lot of that, and doing forms that anatomically designate information that we get from those situations that are useful for the military into identifying who these people are.
So do they still teach you, I guess, and I assume that, I know World War II they did, or I assume they did, how to do like a cemetery and
Yes.
because I know in Europe, most after the battle they would bury the guys, and then they came back a couple years later and moved them all into one national cemetery.
You got it.
Over there. So they still go through how to design that and how to do that and everything.
Yeah,
like
we
that?
had to learn. Part of our training was going in and setting up a basic cemetery.
Right.
From laying out the string line, knowing how many spaces you need to be for each person, how to come up with a logging system, categorizing where everybody's at to keep track of it. If you have to do it in the field of battle, nowadays they call it, I might have the term mixed up, but it's the concurrent return program means that that means that everybody that dies overseas comes home now.
Right.
Whereas if you went to the other way that we were doing it, there's a lot of different terms for it, none I can remember, but I do know that if they had to do it overseas, you have to be able to go back and locate them later to return them, repatriate them.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll never have where that many get casualties overseas.
I think we've come a long way.
Yeah. I've been to a couple of cemeteries, Saint of Old, France, and it's a beautiful cemetery.
That's one of the goals is to at least see one of Saint Mary Glisse in France. I'd love to see that, where Normandy.
Yeah,
obviously.
they are beautiful cemeteries, and the French people take very good care of them still.
Yeah,
too.
it's sovereign property too.
Yeah. So, I got to, my little bit that I know about mortuary affairs. I mean, I remember you had the tags. If someone passed away, or got killed, you would have to do the tag. But, where it resonates with me is I remember getting off the plane in Afghanistan, and there was literally a wall of the metal containers, and the first thing everybody goes, well, what are those? Because typically you've never seen one. And it kind of sets in on what they are. And then, the first time you walk on the back of a C-130 and there's a casket there with a flag on it. And, we were just a couple guys who were flying from one place to another over there. But, they load remains on there, obviously. And it's the quietest flight you will ever be on. And it really sets home because it's one of your guys. But okay, so let's move on from that.
Sure. No, I mean, that's part of the reason I think I felt really, people always ask, why'd you select the MOS? And it's like, I think the MOS selected me because I knew what I wanted to do. And I felt like it takes a special person, I think, to do those kind of things. And because you hear it as a funeral director, more or less in any other industry level job that's out there that people know about, it's like, how do you do what you do? And it's like, I don't know. It's just something that we were born to do maybe, and we had the skills. And it's an honorable job to have in the service.
So after AIT at Fort Lee, where'd you go after that?
I got to come right back to Fort Lee full time.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, well, others might have, in my class, I think only about 2 or 3 folks got to go somewhere different. And that's really where the 2 main units that actively serve the all branches of service in mortuary affairs are based out of Fort Lee. Okay. They get called up for missions. So
they probably rotate in and out overseas. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some of them augment other units. They might send a platoon. I know mine at the time My platoon was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division, so if they went out, we would be activated with them to support them and all those types of things. But came back to Fort Lee. One of the jobs that you have as a mortuary affairs specialist is base detail, because when there's no wars, the base has got to be cleaned somehow.
So what do you, I guess that's my question. I mean, I know what they do overseas, obviously, but what do you do back here in the United States? Is there any kind of processes that you go through? Are you supporting guys that are forward somehow, or?
A lot of base detail is one thing. The base has got to be clean.
Right.
The second thing is all the rotation that we do within the mortuary affairs companies. They take a platoon and rotate them through all the different districts within the state of Virginia through the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner.
Okay.
So you're assigned to, I served in Richmond, Office of the Chief Medical Examiner for about, out of my 4 years in the military, I probably did a course of 2 months. You're there on a month's rotation, so I've done 2 rotations. Where you're assisting pathologist, you're assisting doing the postmortem examinations, you're doing x-rays, you're helping in all lines of the forensic side behind the scenes, except for what the doctors do on the scientific level. All the physical things, helping clean up, helping releasing remains to the funeral homes.
And so some of those guys are probably the ones that rotate in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq, because I know they probably had a mortuary affair unit in both areas, areas of the war over there. I don't think I would want to do that. I just, it's not something that everybody would want to do, and it's got to be a little tougher. Even, I mean, you look at a funeral director, and I mean, I know that they deal with dead people all the time, but and I'm sure funeral directors know some of the people that they deal with, obviously, because they're family oriented. But it's probably a little different than a young guy that just got killed. Due to
it's
whatever.
It's not the same environment.
No.
Because being on the other side of the fence, I still hold a funeral director's license in Virginia, and I was licensed in Wisconsin. The difference between that period and when they come to the funeral home is obviously you come into a more of a aesthetic environment, and that's what you see before all of that.
Right.
So
and
that's harder to.
I assume the remains coming home are when they're given to the funeral director, you guys have already gone through them and made everything.
Well, it's funny you say that. Nowadays, mortuary affairs specialists from the time I came in 2001, and it hasn't been that long, and we're talking almost 16 years.
Right.
And all the advancements and all the things that they've done in mortuary affairs have now led to keeping them hands off, and the Army pathologists or that are assigned through through all that handle the cause of death, and they all come through Dover.
Right.
So Dover does a lot of the embalming ahead of time, and gets a lot of the uniforms ready. They get a brand new uniform and all that, and those are things our mortuary affairs specialists get to go to Dover and assist those processes.
Yeah, I've seen there's a video out there of the guy that actually, and I guess he does I think he's an Army guy, but he does all the uniforms for all the branches of services, and how meticulous he is in putting that together. And so that's a job I wouldn't want either.
Yeah, I mean he's got a clothing and sales right there with all the ribbons.
Yeah.
If everything from he has their record right there, and he's there putting that brand new uniform on. A lot of people think that they do. The family's like, do we send them the uniforms? And like, no, they get a brand new.
Yeah, see, to me that's a tougher job than walking a patrol and
because I think you're starting to make a connection with people.
It's got to be difficult. So interesting enough, we were sitting here talking before, and you had a very interesting event happen to you. You didn't deploy to Afghanistan or Iraq or anything, but you did deploy to the Pentagon. How long after the plane hit?
It's kind of an interesting period, because I had just come off of, now mind you, I went in 01, and I finished training in about June-ish, and then I went home, and my first wife, I took her home to meet the family at the time, and to let them know that I wanted and to propose. So she was my fiance at the time. So I got back around September 10th.
So you're a private.
I was on leave. I was a PFC.
There you go.
A young PFC coming out of everything, hit my first duty assignment and everything, and go home on leave. and it was for my birthday because I was born September 1st, and come back home, and then head back to Virginia. I put my leave out so I didn't have to come in on Monday.
Right.
So get up early for PT Tuesday morning, and then I'm watching when I get back home the terrorist attacks unfolding in New York, and then from there it was just I was already on a assignment to go to Egypt for Bright Star, which is a multi-international exercise they do between multiple countries, and I was going to get my CIF issue, and they blew the sirens off on Fort Lee, and come back to formation to find out that not only did the terrorist attacks involve New York, a plane went down to Pennsylvania and one hit the Pentagon, and he said some of you will be on alert for that. So while they locked down the entire post with because planes had gotten closer than New York, we weren't allowed to leave the base until almost 6:30 that evening, and I was on the advance team, so we were on orders that night. So after the attack occurred, we were on the ground by 1 o'clock in the morning in DC.
In DC.
And I was on the night shift, so I put my stuff away when we got to Fort Myer, put it in my room, and I was out on the grounds that night waiting to go into the Pentagon to remove the victims.
Wow. I mean, not just you, but thousands of us, but for you, that changed, your life changed in 24 hours.
Absolutely.
For what you had to go do.
And that is...
So how long were you on the ground there?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Yep. That's where the majority of a lot of the things were taking place. When we first got there, there was of course, 3rd Infantry Division's right there, the Old Guard, so they were there assisting. We had every fire department from around the area, every major military group, the FBI, the National Transportation Safety Board, everybody was there. So that effort was starting to build, and by the time we were in the middle of our first week, I mean, you couldn't even hardly move on the lawn of the Pentagon there. And we basically started out, the operation tended to expand as the FBI got further inside to locate these folks. They were taking rubble out, and they were sifting through all of that. So I had a couple different experiences on that where I went on to missions inside. We also moved to a parking lot where we were with the Old Guard and the National Transportation and Safety Board sifting through rubble. And it happened to be, it just seems like always seemed to be at the right place at the right time, or whatever you want to call it. But as we were going through remains and things like that, they found one of the IDs of the terrorist on that particular time I was there. So, of course, you had FBI there. So there was a lot of things that I remember from that. That building was still on fire for quite some time.
Yeah, a couple days, I believe.
It was almost a week. It was still hot spots, and of course, they used the natural daylight to help shore up the building. So that's why the night crew was the ones that were busy, because after they got it all shored up during the day, then it was safe enough.
Yeah, because you don't want people walking through there. Yeah, you don't want people walking through there.
But you're talking about a people that were literally frozen in time from that event.
It's amazing, though. The building did exactly what it was supposed to do, though. It stopped the plane.
Yeah,
I mean, it didn't penetrate the full building. So the way it's designed with the different layers and stuff.
Had a lot of folks, because they were working on a new transferring upgraded structure to that side of the Pentagon. That was the only one that didn't get newer upgrades at the time, and had a lot of people that had moved offices and to come down onto the Pentagon to talk to us. Says, we just moved our offices that day, and they were, and within that day, they were moved, and that could have been them. We had a lot of stories like that, and chaplains that were over at a convention that were in a hotel as a plane came through. So some people saw the plane come right up over, right from, I mean, it came over, they heard it, and they saw it from their windows, because there's 2 hotels that look right down that area, and we had a lot of people that said we saw everything. I mean, and it's like, I can't imagine what that was like. I just know what's forever ingrained in my memory about that moment.
So how long did you stay in the military after?
I did my 4 years. I was, then after the Pentagon, I did go to Egypt and spent 70 days there training. I came back, and kind of an interesting thing happened to me where Iraq was getting ready to kick off at this point in time, and now I'm married and have a young baby. I go through the SRP, or what they call the getting ready for deployment, shots and all that. And they said, your blood pressure's a little high, so come back again and do it tomorrow. So I did, and they said, well, it's still high. It's kind of interesting.
So you're sending me to Iraq. Of course it's going to be high.
Iraq. Of course it's
going to be high.
Yeah. I'm getting ready to leave and my family and all this, but excitement, adrenaline and all that. And so they sent me to Portsmouth Naval Hospital. I said, this is interesting. We can't see why. It said, maybe we have time. Let's run a sleep study on you. So it comes back that I have obstructive sleep apnea. I was now no longer. I cannot deploy to the field or to the or overseas. So I was a little disappointed because it's like all my buddies were going. That's if you've ever heard those, which I'm sure a lot of people have that are veterans. It's like if they missed out on something, it was always they wanted to be with their bros and stuff. And but it something about it now. I kind of realize why. It doesn't matter if you got deployed to combat, we still wore the uniform, still had the mission. Not everybody can go through basic training and do the things that we do for that.
Hey, I have a lot of people that, Cold War veterans or guys that didn't, they served 2 years at Fort Polk or something. And, I tell them, I said, you did more than 99% of the people. So, going to combat isn't necessarily something people go, hey, pick me, I want to go. It's more or less an opportunity that you've been picked. There are people that volunteer for it, and there's people that don't volunteer for it. But, I guess it's just the luck of the draw, what's going on in the world at the time. If nothing happened for 10, 20 years, then
it does.
Right. So when you got out, though, did you go right to work for the VA, or?
Well, I went right out, finished school. I was already working for a funeral home. When I knew that I had obstructive sleep apnea and I wasn't going to be allowed to deploy anymore, I was going to be at home, and a lot of my friends were deployed, so I had time to do school. So I started knocking out my college. I got my degree in mortuary science and ended up becoming a licensed funeral director in the state of Virginia. And so that's what my ultimate goal was. It still felt like there was something I needed to do yet for the service. So it was it's still there. I said, we'll just go down this course for a little bit, and then as the world changes and things happen in your life and you mature and develop, and went through a series of, after I got divorced from my first wife, you kind of go down a little bit and then you come back up. Got a job.
Life's a bell curve, man. Yeah.
Got right back in working with as a DoD contractor with the Joint Mortuary Affairs Center, who trains mortuary affairs specialists. I was now working with the people that trained me, and I was an instructor writer, so I was writing doctrine, and
that's how you got into the VA. Then.
And then that's the next step, is I wanted something permanent.
So let's talk a little bit, because I know you're down there at the Ohio Western Reserve National Cemetery. And the history of that cemetery for people here in Ohio, I know it's not that old; it's only 15 years old or so. It's almost like our Arlington. So I'm sure you've heard the history of the mock funerals that they held in the cornfields out there.
Yeah, Mr. Waite told me a lot of that.
And everything to get that place built. So what's your perception of that cemetery and how you deal with what goes on down there on a daily basis, and what's your function?
My perception of that cemetery, it's, I actually applied to go there. A lot of people are like, Rittman, Ohio,
it's a small cemetery.
Who would go there? And it's like just something for all the things I heard about it. When you finally get there and you see it, that's when you realize, yep, I made the right choice. From the staff, from the community involvement, it is displayed within that cemetery. From the way that it's kept, from the volunteer appreciation of it, because that spills over. You can't have a good cemetery without good input from the folks in your community. And it's not just the cemetery that had to develop and look awe-inspiring when you come in. It is everything, the compliments, even the complaints that we over time, when you're building anything, you have to take all that criticism to make something to be appreciated by all. So
I got to tell you, I've never heard a complaint about that cemetery, and I'm sure you have, because you're the guy they're going to call. But I have a lot of people come in our office, and they are always, my loved one was buried there, and they did a great job. And I go to a lot of events down there too, and I'll tell you, from the groundskeepers to the people in the office, everybody is so pleasant and so eager to help people and talk to people, and that means a lot because it shows they care. And you know, I know everybody says, "Well, you only get one chance down there to get it right," and you do that a lot. So I appreciate that because people call me for complaints too for everything. But it is a great thing that we have there, and people always come in and go, "Wow, the place is just so beautiful."
And you can't get it without, like you said, it takes the staff to have that understanding of what we're doing over there. And I think it's
not a job to those guys.
No, and it's really not to me. I just had a conversation with a lady this morning, and I said, you know, ma'am, it's an honor for me to get up and do my job every day. And you know, it's because of the people that are sitting there before me that I go out there and look upon my grounds and have made it possible so I can do that. And it's I have now I can give back to them. Yeah. So
and you guys do a great job down there. Well, I mean, what's your plans for going on down there? What's anything big happening or?
Yeah, well, we just finished up with Wreaths Across America. That's an annual event we do every year with the Civil Air Patrol and local communities placing wreaths on the graves. So right at this point in time, we're getting ready to clean up and get that all taken care of. It's a lot of wreaths, but it's a great cause.
I know if you get a little snowfall, it looks absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it's a great time to go out and take a picture.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Yeah.
And so now we're gearing up for Memorial Day.
And Memorial Day is probably, I would imagine Memorial Day is the biggest day down there.
And that's NCA wide.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. So we do down there. You guys do the ceremony on Sunday, not on Memorial Day, and I think you get a better turnout that day because everybody's in their communities on Memorial Day and stuff like that. But absolutely wonderful event down there. Now, the day before the event, you got something going on. I always like to have somebody mention that. What goes on the day before?
We have a lot of busy little guys, mainly Boy Scouts.
Right.
And they're in all the, and even Girl Scouts come out and place all the flags for the vets.
Yeah.
So we have 29,000, just about getting ready to hit 29,000 vets that are buried, and spouses that are there. And we place the flags on the cemetery.
You know, it's funny because the first time I did that with my son, I did it when I was in the service down in Nashville. I went down and did the flags, and you know, there was about 9 guys. You got a rucksack full of flags, and it took us about 9 hours, I think. So when I went down there, I'm thinking, well, I'm going to be down there all day. But with 500 or 600 scouts, literally, it's done in 30 minutes.
Oh, and then they're hungry and they're ready for hot dogs. So we feed them. Our guys cook hot dogs, and Daryl Bishop, one of the good sponsors of that, Wreaths Across America event that we do the decorating ceremony, we call it, flag decorating thing, and he gives a pin out to each one of the scouts.
You have a school group comes down and puts all the state flags out for Memorial Day too. Yeah. So
Dave Dreher from Norwayne Schools helps us. He's a principal. You can't just be somebody to go and you have to take a test.
Yeah, there's a process.
So I think it's a really cool thing, and I'm really the NCA nowadays, you know, kind of the new things looking forward, not so much, you know, our normal ceremonies, but they're really starting to get into giving education a big note for the national cemeteries about all the history that's there. So one of the things I'm going to start looking at here down the road is getting more involvement like that. Besides Dave and his crew that comes out from the schools and the children that come out and place our flags, you know, to get more kids coming out to do more things.
There's a lot of history there too. And I ask everybody that comes on the show, Matt, if you had it to do over again, would you do it the same way through the military? Would you join?
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on the show. Appreciate having you here.
Appreciate it.
We'll see you next month on Salute to Service. Thank you.